Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force Winds, the podcast is the result.
And welcome to Gale Force Winds. I'm Alan Dale, sitting on the back deck of my good buddy Jerry Carew's house in St. John's, Newfoundland. And what a day it is. Jerry, how you making out?
I couldn't be any better.
Yeah.
I've got my good podcast buddy here.
Yeah.
I've got a gentleman here by the name of Bill Butler, who I worked with 20 years ago. He's going to tell his entrepreneurial story. It couldn't be any better. I always joke on these podcasts about the weather, and you know, many of the listeners probably couldn't care less that the weather is what it is in St. John's. But today, the fact that we're out and there's literally no wind. I just want to make one point. I'm actually controlling the camera remotely, so if Bill is talking and you see me, I am not checking my texts. I am in the moment, but I am controlling the camera from here. So take it away, Al.
Absolutely, Jerry. Gale Force Winds is really all about celebrating success. It's people that have had interesting journeys, that have made interesting kind of choices in their life and gone on to do successful things. And that's what Gale Force Winds is all about. Let's celebrate those stories, let's celebrate that success, and let's find some inspiration in what other people are doing right here in Atlantic Canada. So here we are with Bill Butler. Bill, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Bill Butler. Originally from central Newfoundland. Grew up there, but Springdale, nice small town, great community, big mining industry over there now. Went to university in Munn. Did an arts degree and a science degree, and shortly after that I got involved in the marketing and advertising business, and then for the last 19 years I've been into the oil filtration business. And
that's a bit of a pivot, Bill, from the advertising world, newspapers at that, to oil filtration, and we'll dig into that.
Oil filtration solutions, and we offer a technology that removes ultrafine contamination in water from lubricating oils and hydraulic oils. So, it was a bit of a jump, Jerry. In my university days, my father was a pipe fitter for Vipon, a sprinkler fitter, and so I was always a hands-on kind of a guy, right. And with that. And of course, attended university with an old car. If your car broke down, you didn't have money to go to grad, so I'd live on Cumberland Crescent, and I'd get a ride up the Vatchers up there and get my wheel bearings, and I'd get a hold of somebody on the phone and figure out how to do it. But I was always kind of a hands-on. So, in terms of selling products, Jerry, a big difference. But like any product you're selling, you're marketing. If you know your product well and your competition, then it's not really that big of a jump in terms of the role, but the product itself, yeah.
But I think, Al, it's a jump in the perspective. And I was there. You showed me, because I worked with you at the Telegram, and you showed me the ad, and when you said you were going to do it, frankly, I'm a positive guy. I don't think I jumped on your bandwagon, I was like, man, he's nuts. He's leaving this good paying job. You heard that. But Alan, he still did it. You went out and did it.
And make the best of it. Well, and make the best of it at the time. My wife was pregnant, so she was soon going to go on maternity leave.
Yeah.
And though I had great personal credit, like banks, $5,000 line of credit.
Yeah.
They don't give you the money to support, right?
Yeah.
But I just got my time of life, I guess. I was working at this, I had a great job, suit and tie thing, tickets to concerts all the time, dealing with high profile people, looking after the downtown was a big part of my business. So, you're dealing with all the banks and all the high-end clothing stores and whatnot, and good people. And I just got to the point saying, if these people can do this, why can't I get in my business,
So tell me about, how did you find this company? When in the moment did you find this company?
Well, actually...
or they found you,
Well, what happened was I always had my ear to the ground for business opportunity. And the kind of thing, you go through life, you do little steps, little jobs that give you other jobs, and And I had a summer job in Springdale. I did a marketing survey. Ed Smith was there, writer Ed Smith. was my boss, and he hired me on to do a survey on literacy in the community to find out, who didn't finish school and who needed some education for the adult education program. And that gave me some survey experience, and then I got a job with the city of St. John's later in life doing market research for the tourism department. So I'd ask questionnaires to, 40 questions: where you're from, what are you seeing when you're here, did that kind of thing, and then that helped me, of course. I had an idea for a walking tour. Yeah. And I had a little bit of money gathered up, and I got some historical data from the city of St. John's, a layout of all the old downtown, the buildings, what they were used for, and functionalities and all that kind of good stuff. And I wrote a script. I did a little walking tour tape, and you put it in a cassette. Bob Schooner Tours, I can't remember. Bob Jenkins.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, he down with the rail car there in Harbour Drive, and he used to rent the Walkmans out. So I'd take a little walk, and it would be totally different now because Mall One wasn't there.
Yeah. There's an app now that's been
created. I would imagine.
Yeah, press on.
So no one asked you to do that. You just on your own said, this is a good thing to do.
Yeah, see all these people coming in, and there was, McCarthy's Party and Darren Steele City and Outport Tours did tours, but a lot of people don't want to hop on the bus with 10 people. They want to do their own thing. Yeah. Brochures don't always provide enough information.
Right.
The tour, you could do it on your own time, right? Yeah. And I believe a lot of people that backpack had Walkmans.
Right.
So they just wanted the tape. So I went around, I got the great big C actually. The boys let me put them on for some music. I had background music from a lot of Newfoundland artists.
Wow.
I sold advertising to the bars and whatnot, dropping the Trapper Johns for a screech in, the down homer, all that kind of good stuff. So it didn't make me a lot of money.
Right.
But when I applied for the job at the sales and marketing at the Telegram, it did help me.
Right. They probably said, this guy's got it all together.
Yeah, so how I actually got involved, and answer your question, is normally as sales reps, we don't deal with out-of-town sales calls.
Right.
That goes to the clerks.
Right.
It's kind of, why should we pay you if you're not doing your business?
Right.
So I had no problem with that. And you're taking away from time from your own local customers, so you don't really want to be dilly-dallying with customers outside the province. And so this call came in one morning, and Marilyn, the clerk, said, "Bill, can you take this call? Looking for rates." I said, "Okay." This guy gets on the phone. He says, "Yeah, I'm calling from Ontario." He says, "I'm looking for a distributor."
Little hesitance right off the bat. Guy calling from Ontario.
Right. And I'm saying, like, okay, yeah. And I said, "Well," he said, "I'm inquiring about advertising." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, what's the size of your ad?" And he goes, "Well, I don't have an ad." And I'm like, okay, this guy's got no ad. Well, what's he selling? Like, most of the time you get out of province calls. It's an ad agency looking for line rates, what your weekday, your Saturday rate is, all that kind of good stuff. We have an ad prepared, and this guy had nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, what are you looking for? A distributor for what?" And he said, "Well, I've got this unique oil filtering system." He said that it removes soot from engine oil, and people can prolong their oil with it. I said, "Okay, all right." I said, "Well, I can do up an ad for you,
Yeah.
One enthusiastic, motivated individual, self-employment, blah, blah, blah." And I'm kind of thinking in my head,
So this is not an ad to sell the product. This is an ad
for distribution.
Right, okay. So he's trying to hire somebody here in Newfoundland. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, and so it's all very good. I'll do an ad up for you. And I saw fax you over at this time. Email was just getting on the go, right?
Yeah.
And, I'll send you over some sample ads by fax.
Yeah.
Not everybody had email. A lot of people did, but not everybody did.
Right, yeah.
Right? And
you've been around since before email, Bill. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
And so anyway, I sent them some fax copies.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was so back in the day that underneath the Telegram, they had in the basement, they had a wall that had 365 slots, and it had 10 copies of the newspaper. So if somebody wanted a copy of an ad, you had to literally go down, find the date. You could search that on the system they had, but there was no image, right? Unless you went out to the graphic artist and tried to get them to take it down off the server, but that was too time consuming. That was a no-no. So unless you photocopied the customer's ad from the year before, which I did, I was very organized and did that stuff. But for this particular application, I had to go down and pull out a couple of papers and go to the classified section, cut them out, stick them on the photocopier, and fax it to them, right? So So anyway, so the next day he called me and he said, "Yeah, I like what you got done there." And he said, "Do me up." I said, "Okay." And I said, "I got to ask you a question." I said, and I looked at the website and it was very rudimentary.
Yeah.
It was like, didn't have much faith in it, right?
Right.
You know, this.
So you don't have much
But I
confidence.
just had a
in
vibe
the-
about it.
yeah,
I had
yeah.
a vibe about the guy I was talking to. Like, he seemed sincere. And when you're in the sales business, you know, reading people is part of the game. You're not game, I suppose, but part of the job, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so I said, I just had a vibe, and I said, "What happens to the water?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The water produced in the combustion process." And he said, "Well, why are you asking me that? Like, how would you know that?"
You're just an
And I said,
advertising guy, right?
I'm just an advertising guy. I said, "Well, I got a science degree." I said, I know a little bit about it, right?"
Yeah.
I said, what happens to the water in the combustion process? He says, he said, "The filter removes water at 99.97% from water."
Yeah.
As soon as he said it, a little light bulb went off. I said,
Right.
"Wow, like, this is, right?"
He's got something here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that time, Alan and Jerry, you know, when I went to the newspaper in 95, the only people that had computers were a few people in accounting,
Yeah.
the controller, publisher, and newsroom, but no sales reps.
Yeah.
Anybody else had any computers,
Right.
right? And I at that point, and I could, you know, I'm reading the newspaper. Mills are shutting down in Quebec. You know, mills are shutting down in Newfoundland, paper mills.
Yeah.
You know, and this .com was coming on, and
Yeah.
the internet, and I was like, wow, like, you know, this is not going anywhere
Yeah.
in the long term,
Right.
right? And I always wanted to look for an opportunity and,
Yep.
you know, work for myself. You know, if I can see these other people that they're making money and running the business efficiently and,
Yeah.
and making earn a living, and, you know, it's not all about, you know, I had a great job, yeah,
Yeah.
good money and all that kind of good stuff, but didn't have the freedom.
Right.
Even
yeah.
though it was a great, and you did have some freedom within that sales job, you weren't confined to a desk.
Yep.
I just didn't want the freedom of being away from a desk. I wanted the freedom to be able to come and go when I please, to do if I wanted to. I just didn't like the being confined,
Yeah.
and I thought there would be an opportunity out there, right? And so I sent an email. I said, I'm interested in the technology. I said, you know, the opportunity. I said, here's my home number. Give me a call. And my wife was pregnant at the time, and we're sitting down eating supper, and this is like middle of January,
Right.
2002. And he calls me. He says, I say, I'm interested in the technology. I said, I'm interested in
Right.
distributorship. He said, I said, what's involved? He said, well, you got to buy stock in order, and you got to pay a licensing fee. I said, okay. All right. I said, ship me down a filter unit. Right? I'm going to take this, check it out. He said, okay. So a week later, filter unit shows up. I took it to a couple engineers I knew. One gentleman who had was a electrical. I don't know if he's an electrical or mechanical engineer. No, he was an electrical engineer. Became a medical doctor. Became an ears, nose, throat specialist. Became a plastic surgeon. Real intelligent guy.
Yeah.
And he looked at it and he looked at the documentation that came along with it, and he was like, "Wow, you know, if this is what it says it is, then I would definitely pursue it." And I took it to another gentleman I knew, engineer, who owned a construction company here in the city, and he said the same thing. I said, "Okay." So I called the guy out, and I'm going to have to talk. This is like the third telephone conversation I've had with the guy.
Are you running a SWOT analysis or anything at this point? Are you doing like pros and cons or anything? Or are you just all seat of your pants stuff?
I just looked at it. I just felt that knowing what was going on. I did a park planning course, and I did my geography degree. I know, you know, the ramifications, long-term greenhouse gas emissions, the environment. I just knew it was a good path to go.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I always said in my life, you know, the dependency ratio in here for population. There's an older population. If I ever want to get into something business, I said it would either be the environment,
Right.
or in healthcare, or
Right.
long
Yeah,
term. That
yeah.
was my thought. But I had, and this was the best of both worlds because I got to use my hand.
Right.
You know, I wasn't in the office all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was a good opportunity.
It's ticking a lot of boxes for you, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, so he says, yeah. So I said, I'll ship you the 10 grand for the stocking order. I said, but
Did you tell your wife this or did you do it?
my wife
Because I know how I would have handled
Well,
it.
I'm
personally,
very
but
methodical.
anyway.
I'm very methodical
Yeah.
when it comes to doing things.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't jump in.
Yeah.
You know, I'll plan stuff out, especially if it's a big job.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going to redo a patio, I will spend a lot of time just,
Yeah. Sure.
you know, doing your plan and that. And I thought about it a lot. And she said, you know, you really want to do this? She said, you know, we're having a baby. I said, I know. I said, but, you know, opportunities when they come around, what's another, you know?
Right.
And I said, I'm happy in my job in it, so I'm just tired of the same mundane
Right.
sections, home and garden, business, small business week, just same stuff all the time. And I love the job because I love the people. I love working with people. Like,
Right.
and that's the big thing that's changed for me in a lot of ways. I'm
Yeah.
more on my own now,
Right.
and I you know, I don't have that.
Yeah.
You know, hey, what are you doing after work? You want to go grab a beer, or let's go for a round of golf before we go into work this morning? You
Yeah.
know, and just around the office. You don't have that same, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's changed a lot too. You don't really need as much now because with Zoom and,
Yeah,
and the
for sure,
technology and the
yeah,
phones, like.
Yeah.
You know, cell phones were. I had a cell phone since, and actually another job I did before I took a job at the Telegram. I drove taxi cab here in St. John's for
Yeah.
2 years while I was going to university to try to gain a few bucks. they always send me.
Imagine there's some stories to be told there.
Yeah,
Picking fellas up in George Street. That what?
Well, I could tell you a couple. If you want to, I picked a fellow up one time. I was driving for Bugden's, and he was hammered when I picked him up. I picked him up on Newfoundland Drive somewhere, and he was going to. He said he told me the address, and I never caught it. And it's over by the Waterford, so I saw. I'll just ask him again. Can I get up by the Waterford?
Yeah.
And I remember Beast of Burden was playing on the radio, and I was driving across the parkway. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. Beautiful morning, just similar to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I got over to the Waterford, I couldn't wake him up.
Couldn't.
I just jarred him, and then he woke up once and looked up and laughed and just went back to sleep. So I had called RNC anyway, and they were pretty good. But he came over when he opened. I said, "Oh, he's been good." I said, "He's not causing no trouble, just sleep, right?" And
Yeah.
officer woke him up, kind of came through, and we pulled his wallet out. And he was 2 doors from where I had stopped.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Hey, we went off on a tangent.
Yeah,
there.
sorry for that.
So okay, so Bill, so now you've got a good vibe about this guy. He called you from Ontario. You sense he's got a good product. You check the product out. You send it to some of your buddies that you trust and you know. Good product. You're in the mood for a change. You got a little bit of complication. You got a baby on the way, but you're willing to take the risk, right? You want to do it. You want to build your own thing. You're probably tired at this point of building stuff for other people.
Exactly.
Right? And now you want to build your own thing. What was the next step? What did you do next?
Well, so I had sent him the 10 grand, and a week later he showed up. And 5 or 6 days, we sold it all. Okay. Now, I had a mechanical background, picking at cars, and working with my father's sprinkler fitting, so I didn't mind grabbing a wrench and trying things out. But a little different when you're dealing with $250,000-$300,000 engines, and
right, yeah,
you're dealing with hydraulic systems and steering systems on boats and stuff. So
yeah.
it's a little tricky, right? You want to be careful what you're doing. So the first 6 months were challenging for sure. You're making some good coin, good money at a high-paying job.
Right.
Your wife now is going on maternity leave.
Yeah.
Salaries cut dramatically.
Yeah.
Major change.
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking. So I incorporated a company in April 2002. And I think October the 1st, I put my notice in. And I should have waited because in the advertising business, the last quarter is the best quarter. So I really should have waited.
We worked on 100% commission.
100% commission. Yeah.
You're right.
Oh yeah, I took some major coin out of my pocket. I didn't care. I just had to do it.
Right.
And we installed. We sold the 10,000. And then my father-in-law, actually, God love him, Elmer, he gave me a hand. My father was in Ontario himself, but my father-in-law was a hands-on kind of a guy, and he got involved, and we ended up putting it on a 65-foot fishing vessel. And we did for Pyramid Construction here in St. John's, put it on a 980 loader and a 12-cylinder 3412 cat diesel engine that supply power to their asphalt plant.
Right.
And Modern Paving put a unit on their loaders, and so I was still working at Telegram now.
Yeah.
So we got these units installed. Canada Day was one time we were doing installs, 2002. And then shortly after, oil is the same really analogy as blood in your body.
Right.
Okay. Your blood is carrying nutrients, proteins, all the kind of goodies to keep you functioning. Your kidneys or your filtration system. Well, we do the same thing. So if your blood was dirty and you had issues, then you just go to the hospital and they do a dialysis. They pump your blood out, they filter it and put it back in your body. Well, we do the same thing for heavy equipment, hydraulics, diesel engines. So you can test it independently by laboratory.
Right.
So laboratories will take the oil and they'll check the additive levels. They'll check the acid level. They'll check if it's engine oil. They'll check if it's hydraulic oil or non-combustion oil like transmission oil. They'll check particle counts. And this first engine we put it on, 3412 cat. They normally change their oil at 500 hours, and it costs them $1,000.
Yeah, it's not cheap stuff, right? Yeah.
People don't realize how much oil goes through in the industry, even in this small province with 550,000 people. It's just it's huge. You know how much oil goes through. Yeah, all industry like this. I tell people now, and they're just, what? I can't believe that.
You just got to get a German sports car. You'll understand oil real quickly. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. So they, the importance of oil. And so we got this oil sample back. This engine, 142-liter base, changes the oil every 500 hours. This vessel's going 3,000 hours a season.
Yeah.
So they're doing 6 oil changes. And the sample came back with 1,500 hours on the oil, not 500.
Right.
And the silt level was like 0.2.
Yeah.
There was the acid level was all normal. They had sample from Caterpillar Laboratory.
Right.
Contamination, the engine is normal, green. The oil was still healthy.
And Bill, they're always testing oil, I guess, anyway, aren't they?
Some of the bigger mining companies, construction companies, they do. And some of the major, like the Marine, the Coast Guard, and all those folks do. But when you get down to the 65-footers and you know the commercial fishermen,
they don't. They just change.
They don't. It's not that they wouldn't. They just don't really know the importance of it. And once the warranty is off it, the manufacturer doesn't care.
Right. Yeah.
As long as that period. So, so we got our test results back. We did a hydraulic system on a baler for Nova Recycling at the time, and after 30 days. Their oil had over 30,000 particles in the 4-micron category for every milliliter of oil. So you can see 20 microns with your eye.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regular filters are usually 25 microns on engines, and some are 5. But our filter's 1 micron.
Wow.
So their particle count was up in the 30,000 range, and after 30 days, I had it down to like 200. So they had like a 98% reduction in particulate.
Yeah.
And for hydraulic oil and transmission oil, there's no combustion. So if you can keep the oil free of dirt and water, the oil will last indefinitely. Right. So what the rule of thumb is now, what happens, people get water in a hydraulic system. They just dump this oil, they try and flush the system, disconnect all the lines, blow it all out. They put new hydraulic oil back in, another $4,000. They run it, it's still milky white. It's just something, but we take care of all that.
Yeah. And it's not even, the cost of the change of the oil and stuff is one thing, but it's the preventive maintenance to keep that engine there, because if that goes, it's catastrophic, right?
Well,
that's
what causes mechanical wears, ultrafine particulate. So everybody talks about oil, and to get off track with your story, but so I tested the product within the first 6 months. I knew what it did.
You had it.
I knew. I proved it.
Yeah.
So as many as there were non-believers out there that says, "Oh, you put that filter system on, I can triple my oil change interval." Right. I knew it did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm that type. And the number one rule in sales is, don't screw your customers around.
Yeah.
Provide them a good product and service. Don't be a. And the problem I had with this product starting out was the unbelievability factor.
Right. Are you one of those guys that has to touch it to believe it? Because I'm one of those guys.
I am. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I would never sell anything or market any product that there wasn't a benefit of return for the customer. What's the point? You're going to get to the day.
You got to show them the value.
Well, you're not going to be in business for very long, are you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I knew I had a fantastic product. I just had to find a way to convey it. And the experience I had at the Telegram was great because the product website. The first thing I did was I even did a brochure for the manufacturer.
Right.
I changed the website. I wrote the copy. I had a friend of mine, an ex-graphic artist that I work with, to revamp the website.
Yeah.
Totally changed the image of the product. I did that,
at
no cost to the guy, and in the first year and a half.
Right.
And
did he take that model that you created and then take it elsewhere?
Well, what I did was I did my own website,
Yeah.
and then I basically revamped and did his
Right.
totally.
I was going to say.
No marketing. When I started selling that product, there was a 1-page, 8.5 brochure,
Sell
two-sided
sheet,
color.
little sell
That
sheet.
was it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Hard to tell that story. Isn't
That
it?
oh
What?
right.
Well,
So-
you're right. You and I talked about that. Telling
Yeah.
that story on a brochure is
Yeah, it's
not
hard.
easy.
No. So here I
Particularly
am.
when you got a product that's a little bit
Technical.
right, and not only that, not only technical, but a little bit of a disruptive technology. Like this is changing things, right?
And this is getting back, not to be negative about, but when I got in this business, this product is a major supply disruptor.
Right.
Big time.
Yeah.
And well, I'll walk you through the story. So, like this fishing vessel, 142 liters of oil. And now they're going 1,500 hours instead of 500.
Right.
They're doing 3,000 a season. So they're doing 2 oil changes a year now instead of 6.
Right.
So they're going through 480 liters of oil instead of 1,000 liters
Yeah.
of oil. It's a dramatic difference.
Yeah.
And, there's 300 or 400 fishing boats in Newfoundland of that
Yeah.
class. So
And that's money in their pocket, right?
Big time.
Yeah, I get it.
and so I've always had to, initially, the sales tools we had was 8.5 sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Once I got these filter units installed on these test people that said, okay, Bill, I'll take you on, I believe you,
Yeah.
right? You seem like a good fella. I don't think you're,
Yeah.
and I've got more of the sales because they believe me and that I wasn't,
Yeah.
not so much because I didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of technical data or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I installed those first filter units, I made sure I took oil samples. I chased the equipment around where
Right.
it was to get it before and after. I kept the used elements so I could illustrate and show customer
Right.
what's in the filters.
Yeah.
And then I did that for a couple of years, and then I built a demo unit. And I went and got an Albany pump, and I had a local manufacturing company weld me up basically a small reservoir. I think it was like 2 by, it was pretty big. And I had it on wheels. I used to take it to trade shows. So I could illustrate it there.
Yeah.
I took photocopier carbon, I dump it in the oil, which is about 3 microns, and
Yeah.
I mix it up black as the boot, like you can't see through it.
Yeah.
And I flick on the pump, and I got a 3-way valve, and I can make the oil come out of my filter
Yeah.
or one of a standard engine filter like
Yeah.
you see on a tractor trailer.
Yeah.
And when the oil comes back into the reservoir, it's black when it goes through the spin-on filter. It can't take out high volumes of soot.
Right.
But when the oil passes through mine, it comes out just like Mazzola in a single pass.
Wow.
It can remove ultra-fine contamination. And then I can throw a little bit of water in the oil and stir
Yeah.
it up. And I put a little bit on a piece of tin foil,
Yeah.
and I can crackle the water to show you that there's water in the oil. And then after it passes through mine, I take my oil, and there's no crackle. I can remove water. So I didn't have any of those sales tools starting out. None of it.
No, and you had none of the tools, but you had the ability, right? You knew how to sell,
I knew what it did.
and you knew how to provide value to somebody else.
But it was a new business, so now
Right.
I had to start figuring out how to install this on, 16-cylinder engines,
Yeah.
and hydraulic systems, excavators, loaders,
Yeah.
and so it was a learning experience. It was no doubt.
Because being a sales guy in media and being a technical sales guy in
Heavy
industrial-
equipment, yeah,
in heavy
yeah.
equipment, that's a different skill set,
It is,
right?
yeah.
It's a different skill set because you're talking a different language to guys.
Well,
right?
so what I did first, because when you're dealing with bigger companies, sometimes you go in to see the maintenance manager, and well, I'll give you one example. I was in Alberta, and I distribute this product in Western Canada through another company, and I knew this company. A guy got me into the door, and I met the maintenance manager. Anyway, I did the presentation. He was all great. We got this,
Yeah.
right? We're trying to reduce our ISO 14001 and
Yeah.
got our costs out. And then it just went dead. And I found out through another guy that his brother-in-law, the maintenance manager, was the guy that used to come in on the weekends and change the oil.
No,
of the equipment.
he didn't want a system like
So supply
Yeah,
disruptor.
yeah,
Just
sure.
one example,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
100%. Yeah,
Right. So.
yeah,
Train of thought there now. Yeah, so first when I got into it, I couldn't go after the big players because it was just too many degrees of separation.
right. Yeah, trying to
So-
figure out who to chat with and right.
So the marine industry,
Yeah,
big engines,
yeah,
the owners used to change or still do change the oil.
Yeah.
They pay the bills.
yeah.
They run the equipment. So one-stop shop. So
Yeah.
that's what I went after, the marine
Okay.
market.
Okay.
So as of today, I've got about 180 65 footers in Newfoundland waters with this technology on.
Yeah.
I have a distributor in Nova Scotia. He's got a few up there as well. But
Yeah.
so that's what I did. I went to the first Marine show. So I quit my job that October 1st, 2002. The Marine show was, and that's why I quit, because I had this big Marine show was coming up at the end of October. And I said,
You had to.
I had to. If I'm going to make the leap, this is the
Yeah.
time to do it. If not, I'm going to wait till next year to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fishermen that, said, Bill, when I told you to come and put the filter on, I said, I believed you, but I didn't believe you.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to believe, right? I mean, this is a disruptive technology.
Right.
So it's hard until they see it.
And the other thing about the technology is, like, we remove ultrafine contamination because we remove oil break. Let me get back up a little bit more. The importance of oil.
Yeah.
Is underestimated.
Yeah.
And the ability of regular oil filters to keep it clean is overestimated.
Right.
So, oil performs more than just a lubricating function.
Yeah.
It carries heat from the component to a cooler.
Yeah.
It carries dirt to a filter media.
Yeah.
There's emulsifiers, dispersants, additives, rust inhibitors, all these goodies to ensure that reduction of mechanical wear and
Yeah.
the oil stays healthy. And so I always had to sell this at, I go to a fisherman and say, hey, you put this on this engine.
Yeah.
It costs you $1,000 to change the oil every 500 hours.
Yeah.
To run 1,500 is going to cost you $3,000.
Yeah.
You put my filter on, it's $3,000 to install. You're saying, instead of, spending $1,000 at 500 hours, now you're gonna save $800. So, on those marine engines, those customers are saving
Yep.
$1 an hour.
Yeah.
And then to get back to your point, mechanical wear. So
Yeah.
I have to sell it so
Yeah.
they're going to save money.
Yeah.
But I had a customer, Jason Penton in Portergrave, 2 years ago. The vessel, the engine, the 3412 Cat, the Atlantic Challenger is the name of the boat.
Yeah.
Been changing his oil 900, 1,500 hours the whole time he's had
Yeah.
the technology. I did a return on investment calculation for him. They saved $38,000 on just oil alone, just the cost.
Yeah.
They don't have a waste disposal charge out there. They just bring
Yeah.
it to the wharf. They got
Yeah.
the holding thing there. But the engine was supposed to be rebuilt at 20,000 hours.
Yeah.
You get 48,000 on it.
Oh, that's
Wow.
fantastic. Yeah.
They changed a pressure switch on the engine.
Yeah.
When they put the new seat, so he called me there a couple of years. He said, Bill, I'm changing the engine. I said, what? I said, what's going on? He said, nothing. He said, all my oil samples are immaculate. He said, but Bill, I got 48,000 hours on it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be rebuilt at 20.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm putting a new C32 in. I said, okay. And anyway, the engine worked so well. When Caterpillar took the engine out, with the documentation, the oil analysis, and the testing they did, they sold it to a mining company in Brazil, and apparently the engine's still going.
Perfect. Wow. So
What a great story.
And an engine rebuild is $120,000. So
Yeah.
120 to 140,000 bucks. So you want to look at the money that they saved on the oil and filters
Yeah.
is nothing. It's just gravy.
So now you're building this business here in Newfoundland. Are you building it anywhere else?
So-
Tell me about that.
So after about 4 years, so I getting back to the bank story, so I couldn't get any money, and so
Yeah.
I had good personal credit.
Yeah.
So I racked up a couple credit cards.
Bank likes to give you money when you don't need it, right? And when you need it, they don't necessarily want to take your call.
So I racked up two credit cards,
Yeah.
and I think it was like $25,000 I had racked up.
Yeah.
And 3 years I paid it off. My wife was on maternity leave for a year.
Yeah.
And I just took a big drop in pay. So for 2 years, I didn't really take anybody's salary money at all.
Right.
At all. Just
Yeah.
the beer. Right?
Just to get by.
Yeah, I was glad the wife was breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Saved on milk.
You had your finances calculated to that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It was brutal.
Yeah.
It was brutal, right?
And margins are tight if you're doing that.
Well, I always tell the story when I was going to university. It got so rough one time. I had to get a loan on my advancement on my student loan for the
Right.
term. And
Yeah.
buddy said, "What do you need the money for?" I said, "Buddy," I said, "I'm behind 2 months' rent." I said, "I've been eating potatoes for 2 weeks." I said, "I can't even afford to put butter on my bread." That was a fact. right? But it wasn't that rough, but right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is the kind of thing that we at Gale Force Winds we're interested in, Bill, because, you know, resilience and survival and, you know, the respect that we have for you for going through all that.
Yeah.
20 years later, here you are, you know, 186 boats.
So, you know, in Newfoundland, and so it's been still a little bit of a rough ride. Trying to get into municipalities and government and stuff has just been a nightmare, right? But I'm, you know, if the private industry is going to do their thing, I'm happy enough with that, helping the environment. So after that, I acquired, after I paid off my debt there, the credit cards and whatnot, I got straightened out a little bit. I bought the rights then for Atlantic Canada.
Yeah.
And, took me a little while to get that straightened out, and then I acquired the rights through helping international sales with the manufacturer. So I own the rights to Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Finland.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with a crowd and a gentleman now in the Faroe Islands there, so I'm hoping to get some expansion over there.
Yeah.
Western Canada, I acquired that 4 years ago. We've got a guy in Vancouver, another guy in on the island.
Yeah.
And so things are going pretty good, yeah.
So do you have to go to all these places? You've been up to the Faroes
Oh my goodness!
and everything?
I've been everywhere. I can't say I'm almost like a Hank Snow song.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
everywhere,
right,
man. But so I help. When it comes to marine, I'm really the expert for the head office now for manufacturing. So if somebody in the marine industry, no matter where they are, if they got issues, the head office will call me and say, "Hey, Bill, I got so and so somewhere. You need to put this out of bow thruster or whatnot."
Yeah.
But I have. Set up distributorships for head office. I've been to Turkey twice. I've actually driven from Ankara to Istanbul twice, right across the country, Turkey.
Yeah.
I followed you on, you were posting on Facebook, I think, pictures and stuff, right? Not unlike this man here who's in all over Pakistan, Lahore, Pakistan, and you're very similar journeys, you guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
You know, it was great. I've been to Trinidad a couple times, Germany, Denmark, but I'm looking forward to going to the Faroe Islands now in the next little while. I think there's some opportunities there. Big marine fishing.
100%. And wonderful people, too.
You've been, I've been?
Yeah.
And then the landscape and topography is very similar to Newfoundland, hence the cultural landscape.
Yeah, and it's funny, Bill, I mean, we're off a tangent a little bit, but the Faroe Islands, I mean, they're so close to being like Newfoundland. It's unbelievable. It's just that there's an island in the middle of the ocean. They rely on one another. There's a sense of resiliency, a sense of wanting to help one another.
Isolation does that, and I think that's why Newfoundlanders are so friendly all the time. You know, even in the small towns, like I remember one time, even in Spring, being a small town, my buddy was DJing one time, and he had to play to a New Year's Eve dance down in Lassie.
Yeah.
So we drove to Lassie, and we picked like December 31st, 6 o'clock in the night, and this guy hitchhiking on the road, and we picked him up, and he had broken down, and just asked him. And at that point, I mean, I lived in Ontario for a couple of summers. I seen it a little bit for a young fella in his 20s. I've been around a little bit, right? And I said, ever been up to, when was the last time up to Springdale? He said, go to Springdale once a year, maybe. I said, what about Corner Brook? Oh, never goes to Corner Brook. He said, go doctor or something, maybe, right? And I'd never been to St. John's, right?
Yeah.
And I think about, people say, why are Newfoundlanders so friendly? Well, when you got to isolate it, and a lot of these people don't go anywhere, but they're just happy to see, to find out at that point, the internet and everything now, I mean, it's
a different world. Yeah.
Different world, but back then, the only way you really found out about another place is if you bumped into someone that chat, right?
So, Bill, you're obviously doing great work in Atlantic Canada. You've got the international. You're the go-to guy for the marine sector internationally. You must be, when you reflect back, you must be awfully happy you took the call that day. You could have just said, "I'm not dealing with that."
Well, I didn't mind taking those calls, and actually I used to take a few calls from the students. I mean, the jury used to do their when they're doing courses, marketing course, they need to do a business plan. They know how much average. I had a template done up because I used to like to help those guys, right? I knew what it was like to try and looking for information. Somebody help you. I had no problem, right?
Yeah.
But I just took that call, and I just had a vibe when I spoke to the guy, and it was time to move on.
And it's about being open too, right? It's about being open to opportunities.
if you're open to opportunity, sometimes they find you, right?
Well, and that's why I always say, never judge people to talk to anybody about anything. You don't know who you're going to talk to, and opportunities that you're gonna get, right?
Bill, I got a question. What advice would you give? So there's a young person watching this podcast now. What would you say to them? They're 25, they're 30, they're 35, they're 40. Who cares about how old they are? They have an inkling in their head and they want to do it. Well,
first of all, you gotta want it. You gotta have a desire to do it. In my case, it was the entrepreneurial part of it that wanted me to branch out. That there was an opportunity that when you're selling 100% commission, you're working for yourself. So I had no issue with that. A lot of people can't work independent.
Right.
A lot of people had trouble with online learning and whatnot. They got to be a face-to-face kind of a deal, but they got to have supervision. Yeah. I'm just not one of those people. So
everybody's different, right?
So if you have that ability to, to be independent and work for yourself, that you don't need to be supervised, and but you gotta love to do what you're doing. And I don't know if I was marketing any product, I think I still would have been successful with it, because I just enjoy talking to people. So know your product. Yeah. More than anything, know your competition. Never badmouth anybody, and never screw a customer around. Do what you can for them. But taking the phone call, you just got to keep. So my advice would be, if you do your research, if you're going to make a big change in life, you be sure, that what you're going to take on, that it is what it is, because the other one negative thing about it is, a lot of people do take gambles and they don't work out, but right. I'm not saying just be cautious. Take your time, do your research, don't jump into things too quickly. I mean, when I found about this opportunity, I was 6 months before I made the move. Now, some people might say, it's not a lot of time, but, do your research. If you know people in the related business, knock on their door. People are inclined to have a chat to you and try to help you out, right? Yeah. And, at MUN, I think in the business facility, there's lots of mentoring programs and lots of things, opportunities that people can help you with. I didn't avail of them. Yeah. But marketing and business plans are always good to do. I did a kind of a marketing plan, not in depth, because I didn't go seek any funding. Yeah. So I didn't really have to do it, that way. But no, live your dream. If you've got an idea and you want to make a go of it, just do it. But
yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, Bill, that the product that you're selling, and to you understand the importance of what that means to the end user. Like, that fisherman, if something goes wrong for him, it's going to affect his family. It's going to affect his putting food on his table. I mean, there's a personal connection there. This is not just oil, right? This is not just oil.
I mean,
I go
to these. I have customers all around the island. Yeah. I get many invites. What are you staying tonight at the hotel? No, come up the house. Invite you in for supper. And I've had customers that I introduced this product to initially. Yeah. And when it came to time to install, they didn't do it. Yeah. And fell off. And I said, why? No, I'm not going to put it on. Oh, so-and-so from the engine guy told you not to put it on. No, I'm not saying who said, but no, I'm not going to bother with it. And then 2 years later, I get a call, and I keep everybody's number on my phone. And guy calls me, and he says, how much is that filter system for the hydraulics? Why? Same price it was 2 years ago. Why? I got water by hydraulics. Can you come down? And you go down and you install it. Yeah. And I said to this particular customer, I installed it, and I said, I'm going to run down the wharf now, talk to a couple customers. I said, I'll be back in a half hour. I said, just leave her running. And I came back a half hour later and shut her down and took the lid off the filter system. When I pulled the filter, it was completely saturated with water. Right? Yeah. I laid that on the deck, and he looked at me and said, unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. I said, why didn't you put it on everything before, right? Right. And I said, I wouldn't steer you wrong. Yeah. I said, here it is, right? Removing the water. And he said, Bill, it's just hard to believe that it does that, right? Yeah.
And you're building trust, right? I mean, your business is all about building trust with these people.
I mean, I've had fisher persons that have called me. I've hopped on a boat on a wharf. Yeah. And say, skipping around, I chat. I got a filter system. Oh yeah, he was talking about that the other day on the VHF radio with the 200 mile limit to another fisherman. Yeah. So that's the kind of response I've gotten in that industry.
Good for you.
There's still a lot of people who don't believe it, and it's the unbelievability factor. Yeah. But I tell them, listen, the technology can be tested with oil sample analysis. The laboratory is telling you if the oil is healthy. Yeah. It's not me.
Yeah.
You just change the filter when I tell you to change it, and I will assure you it will perform as I've told you, right? And even the Coast Guard one time, they had one of their vessels were an emergency search and rescue standby, and I get a call from one of the chiefs saying, I got water in one of our hydraulic systems. He said, we're on emergency standby. I said, I can't get anybody to come in and dump the oil or anything. He said, somebody said you got a filter that takes water. I don't believe it. Oh, yeah? I'm not joking with you. But come down. I go down the next day, hook my filter card up, and left him 6 filters. And the next day after I went down, he's just shaking his head. He said, if I didn't see it, I would not believe it. Yeah. He said, we're on emergency standby, Bill. Almost all the water's at that hydraulic system. He said, and meanwhile they after dumping it 3 or 4 times before, trying to get it out. So he literally cleaned that while they were on standby. Didn't have to have any decommission of the hydraulic. The vessel was still able to go. If they had to leave, all he had to do was shut off the cart, pull off the deck, and go.
Yeah. Now, I know that Jerry, I think we've got a helicopter coming over top here.
Oh, that's a plane. There's, despite COVID, there's a plane, once every 6 days flying into St. John's now, right?
So I know that Jerry asked you, what you would say to somebody starting off. But we always ask our guests to leave the audience with a small takeaway. Now, Bill, you're a guy who had an interesting journey. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're not afraid to try something new, and you do the kind of the pros and cons. There's no doubt about it. You might have a different way of doing it, but you do it. But you're a guy who had an interesting journey. You've traveled around. You've seen some things. What would a piece of advice be to somebody right now who maybe not just starting their own business, but a piece of advice for life? What would it be? What kind of is the one thing about Bill Butler that we should pay attention to? What is the one thing about you?
Oh, I think the golden rule is what I kind of stand by more than anything else.
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think karma is a big thing. I think if you, do your best. I was a scout leader for 5 years. I think that kind of says it all. Plan ahead.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
But do your research. Don't give up. If you really are passionate about something, and I don't want to sound like that old saying, can be anything you want to be, that kind of thing. But I think if you truly have a good product, you do your research, you have a good idea. There's a lot of resources out there now to help. The government agencies and all that kind of good stuff. Pursue it.
Yeah.
Pursue it.
There's chances there, right? There's an ability right now to kind of pick yourself up and do things. There's opportunity for everybody.
Especially in this environment business. Yeah. I mean, the environment is becoming more important. Global. Look at all the flash flooding in Europe going on this last couple of days. Yeah. Extreme temperatures all across. More so, setting records. Growing season in Newfoundland is going to be going up with even a 2% increase in temperature. They're saying agriculture is saying you're going to. Growing season is going to be good for us. Yeah. But don't give up on stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Pursue your dream, yes, to a point.
Yeah.
To a point. Do your research, but there's lots of opportunities out there. Keep your ear to the ground, and things will come up unexpectedly.
Just like that phone call from Ontario.
You never know.
You never know.
That's why I always say, talk to a stranger.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're going to treat everybody equal. You never know what opportunities are going to come your way.
100%. Right. Jerry, what do you think? What are your final thoughts on today's podcast?
Well, I've known Bill a long time. I'm a positive guy, but honestly, when he told me he was going to take this journey, I was like, you're nuts, man. You're nuts. You're leaving this job. 20 years later, here he's sitting before me and you. This entrepreneurial journey that you're on is why we've created Gale Force Wins. Bill, utmost respect for what you've done. I know it isn't easy. You're sitting in that office sometimes by yourself. You got all the accounting stuff to do. You're the chief cook and bottle washer. So just appreciate you being on. And, I appreciate you getting to know my podcast partner here a little bit. So thanks again for sharing your story. And hopefully that inspires someone out there.
Well, I hope so. It's always good to tell a story. It's one of the few ways you can really learn is by experience, and I guess listening to someone else's experience can help someone with theirs.
Well, another wonderful episode of Gale Force Winds, and truly inspirational, right? So Bill Butler is the type of guy that keeps his ear to the ground. He knows that an opportunity might be just over the horizon, and he's willing to hear somebody out and look at that opportunity, and look what he's done now. Great product that Bill has brought to Atlantic Canada, and indeed around the globe, making a difference for people. There's no doubt about it. Bill understands that his product has a direct effect on people's livelihood, and that's a personal connection that he makes, and that's so important in business. Boy, I always like to leave the audience with my own piece of advice, Bill, quite honestly, and that is the world needs more Bill Butler. Thanks for joining Gale Force Winds.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.